Hey guys, how you doing today? I want to make, I guess, a quick, but also the last video for the series. I want to make, I guess, a video on how to program no spending into yourself. Now, this might sound super crazy and whatnot, and I guess it is to some extent, but also I think that for every person who wants to be financially responsible, there will be a time when there is just a no spending period, or at least some period of pulling back a little bit, just so you can kind of push yourself ahead just that much further. So I just wanted to run you guys through exactly how I have been able to do it. Now, am I like this right now? Not as much, but I still do retain some of the learnings and some of the, I guess, mindsets of no spending, right? But there was a time when it truly was no spending, and we'll get into how I was kind of able to do that, and why you might want to do that. Okay, so first point here is, what's your reason for not spending money? Now, everyone will have a different reason, but mine was personally to invest and to compound those earnings early on, right? I kind of really understood the idea of, just, I guess, taking that sacrifice, I guess you could say, just, you know, not spending money, even though I had the capacity to, but just not doing that and essentially retaining my earnings and using that to invest and push myself forward, right? Now, your reason might be for more financial security. Maybe you want to pay off some debt. Maybe you want to travel. But for me, it was to really set up a base early on because I understood the power of compound interest and how getting in early and just letting time do the rest of the work was probably one of the best ways to do it, especially as, when you're younger, you have the time and you don't have the money. So using your time to your advantage, I guess in the background, because really you're not doing anything. It's really time doing things can be really really impactful in, I guess, creating wealth early on, right? But again, each person's reason might be different. You might like a challenge simply, right? So and I guess that was also a factor for me that I did enjoy the challenges of seeing how little I could spend to survive. Now you might say this is a little bit crazy, but I just wanted to kind of I don't know, not prove a point, but I just wanted to kind of experience what it would be like to live with not much, right? And kind of be on the edge of being really careful with how you spend, And there'd be various varying degrees to how I do this. If I traveled overseas, it might mean staying in hostels instead of hotels. It might mean going to the very local food places instead of going to McDonald's. It might mean, potentially skipping out on getting warm food altogether and going to the supermarket to purchase food. So it all just depends. And I guess in day to day life, normally when you're not traveling, it might be something like instead of getting maybe instead of getting coffee, you're skipping out. Um, Maybe instead of having a big breakfast, for $30 at a cafe, maybe just get coffee, little things like that, right? Now, it's not the worst thing ever at the time, but you do like there is an expense, right? If it's not money, it's the experience, right? Because you're ultimately going to have less of an experience as compared to the other people who are spending the more money and getting a better experience, right? Now, sometimes that's okay. I think that there's definitely a time and place for that, as I did myself. But now, I don't really go without too often those experiences because I built that base, and now I'm able to kind of take the take the gas pedal off a little bit. Been saying that, still retain most of that frugal mindset. Otherwise, I could just spend all my money tomorrow and be broke again. Not again, but be broke, right? So we don't want that. I think the last point here is to understand that this is short term and that I've had to intentionally readjust myself to start spending again. So, for example, you would have seen in the last video I have a iced coffee with me. Now, before would I have bought that? Absolutely not. I would have gone without. Now, sometimes to the point where let's just say you're exercising, you don't have the right nutrients or you don't have a Gatorade, and you just start losing it, right? Because you have no sugar, you have no salt. Maybe it's you're so hungry you start to get a little bit woozy. Little things like this, they're arguably quite extreme. but I'm just giving you an idea of how far sometimes I would go to save money. And you could call it sickness, yes, but this, I guess, was short lived, and it was done with intention. It was done for a purpose to really lock in that save money mindset, work more, save more as well. And then obviously, I've, I have multiple properties at 25. I will have even more and more each year going forward. And most people probably can't say they have that, but it did take a sacrifice early on, which again most people won't be willing to do. Now, if this does interest you in the slightest, here are some easy ways to start reducing your spending. Right, you want to aggressively cut your costs and/or switch to cheaper alternatives across all areas of your life. So, if you have a new iPhone 16, get an iPhone 12 used. Right. If you have Vodafone, go with something like Kogan. That's exactly what I've done. I have a mini, it's a tiny phone. I have Kogan. I have a used Apple Watch. Most of my clothes are from cheaper places, or I've bought them used online. Um, and there's no shame in doing that. It is what it is. But if you don't need to go out every weekend for breakfast, then don't do it for a little bit. All these things, just you need to aggressively start cutting things. And you need to be honest with yourself and say, what things do I need and what things do I really want? Because I mean, that will make it quite easy if you're being honest with yourself. Another point here is to develop a scarcity mindset. Scarcity, understanding a dollar is hard to earn, and that you shouldn't just spend your money willy nilly. Now, I do agree. A scarcity mindset is okay initially because I get it. You are trying to save money, but as a long term thing, it's just you can't do that, right? You need to, you don't want to be always living in, being a little bit reserved, if that makes sense, right? It is true though that a dollar is hard to earn, especially in the early stages. So definitely appreciate that and don't just throw it away, right? I used to pick up dollars off the floor, no shame in that. But I probably still will actually if I saw one. I haven't seen one in a while, but yeah, absolutely no shame in that, right? Next one here is that instead of enjoying your life, using your time to make more money so you actually don't have any time to spend. I think this is a really underrated point. I probably do need to really look at this again, if I'm being honest. But just having more work to do, having more responsibilities, and not actually being able to, temporarily, just do what you want willy nilly because you have work responsibilities, right? That means you're ultimately going to be making more money and you're also going to be saving more money, and even on your time off, you'll be too tired to want to spend money. You just want to relax and sleep. Totally fine, right? If it means that you're able to save and ultimately invest that money and get ahead early on. Note that reducing your spending should go alongside earning more and investing to grow your money. You don't want to just cut your spending and quality of life and then have the same income. You want to plan to be able to create more income and invest that money, right? Because ultimately, you might get stuck in just saving mode forever and ever and ever, which we all know saving is not the key to financial freedom. It's being able to invest large chunks of money over time and get some compounding returns, get some really big returns. All right. Now, a few extra tips from my experience. This might come off as a little bit weird, but I've watched people online live in cars and go homeless, just to see that it's possible to spend less. If I ever, doubted what I could or couldn't do, I'd look up lots of these videos, and honestly, they're quite enjoyable. But you can kind of see that some people live on absolutely nothing, and they live terribly. But it's just life, right? And if I'm complaining, even though I have so much around me, so much infrastructure, so much opportunity, I mean, that's crazy. Something needs to change, right? They're going to and I did this when I travel as well, go to the gym to shower, go to shopping malls to get things done. I'm getting a video done right now. Um, it isn't the prettiest thing ever, but I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right? I would also intentionally not spend money when I go out, or just didn't go out entirely. Note that this is temporary, and it kind of, I guess, is another reminder from what I mentioned earlier, which is being able to sacrifice those experiences early on, not forever, but just for a short-term time to be able to push you forward, right? Your social life, work life, and family will all be negatively impacted, so make sure you communicate your goals, right? I got lots of shit from everyone for some of the things I'll do, even though I don't think it was too bad. And rather, I thought actually they spent money too freely. Now, funny that I'm looking back now, 5 years later, and I'm absolutely miles ahead. But I won't get into that. But yeah, everyone will be negatively impacted by your choices. So just just make that clear and make it so that they understand. They're like, oh, that's wow, it's quite interesting that you're doing that. Like, good job. You know, you don't want it to come off as you're just overly frugal and you're cheap. It's a strategic choice to be able to push you forward, 10 times forward into the future, right? Last point here is, like I'm reprogrammed to spend again, most people need programming to cut their spending. So don't expect it to be super easy. I think it'll be a mix of those around you that you spend time with, the videos you watch online, or the content you consume, and also just yourself, forcing yourself to cut spending habits because there's a bigger goal ahead of you. So I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, let me know down below. But yeah, it's I think something that everyone needs to go through if you want to really build something magical when you're young. But yeah, anyway, I think that this was the last video from my 30-part series. So hopefully you guys enjoy, and I'll see you in the future sometime. Peace.